Most people think of investments as stocks, or the market as stocks. That's the way the American public has been conditioned. Rarely will you read anything about income-producing properties. It's a big secret. I am very anti-stock because stock is, in my opinion, legalized gambling. It may be going great, but there'll be a time when there'll be one incident worldwide, like 9/11, like the Mideast crisis, where the stock can plummet in one single day. That'll never happen with prime real estate. So the types of income properties are up there. Apartment complexes. I love apartment complexes because they're usually one-year leases. You could make improvements and so forth, and you could raise the income. Office buildings, shopping centers, retail strip stores, industrial property. Parking garages are a hybrid. It's a business and real estate. Mobile home parks, a hybrid. Hotels and motels. Here's something that I came up with. A number of years ago, I got a call from the real estate board in Miami. They said, we'd like you to come over and speak on income properties. I said, okay. So then I sat down and I said, well, what am I going to say? How do I do it? And I just kind of went into a trance. And I says, well, you got to have top location to begin with. Then they have to have a good-looking building. It can't be a piece of junk. It's got to have a nice design. When you go up to it, in seconds, I either like the building or I don't like the building. Okay, you got the first two. And we got to go in order. Then, if you got the first two, who are the tenants in the building? Have you got an X-rated movie place as one of your tenants? Have you got professional tenants, tenants that have been in there? Now the upside is so important, and I'll get to that in a moment. Financing, plenty of money around. The banks are dying to loan money. And then price. If you got the first five, price, you can pay market value, as long as you got upside. An A location would be Main Street in Brunswick, or Front Street in Bath. A desirable mix would be professionals and people that you know are going to be staying there. You don't want one bad tenant. Now, assume you were to buy a 10,000 square foot warehouse complex and two tenants are in that complex. If one moves out, you're 50% vacant. But supposing you had 10 1,000 square foot units and one moves out, you're 10% vacant. Unless those tenants are very, very strong, you take a big risk with two tenants in a 10,000 square foot building. I don't like options to renew. They don't exist in apartments, by the way. I shouldn't say they don't exist. You usually have a one-year lease with apartments. That's great, because you can raise the rents the second year, and the third year, and the fourth year. But you got to give them something for it. I'll get into that. I looked, tenants setting the price of a building. Let's say that you want to buy an office building, and the rents are $20 a square. Let's use rents at $15 a square foot. They're rented at $10 a square foot. They have 3-year leases with 3-year options at 3% increase. And they're renting way below the market. A building is only worth the income it generates. So if you've got fixed amounts that are coming in, where's the upside? The increase in value comes from the increase in income. It's simple. It's as simple as that. Potential condo buyers is something else. If you buy an apartment building, it's a really nice building. It's been in good shape. It's 25 years old. It could, and you feel the people in it would like to own their units. You can make a lot of money. I converted 1,700 units in 22 buildings. I didn't know what I was doing when I started. I had no idea what I was doing. And I learned it through trial and error. This is great. Below market rent. I bought a building where the rents were about $16 a foot and the market was 22. The leases were expiring in 2 years. Great tenants, attorneys, mortgage brokers, real estate brokers. Very, very fine. A location, B building. I jumped on it because there were short-term leases, no renewal option. Now, sometimes an executive center, if you have a large space, 10,000 square feet or something in an office building, you might want to divide it up. I had a whole floor vacant for a year, kept advertising, and I couldn't find a tenant for the whole floor. It was 8,700 square feet. So I made it into 36 small offices, and we filled it up. Change of use sometimes, I noticed a school building in Bath converting into rental apartments. Some of the churches being converted into apartments around the country. Now, mismanaged buildings. You've got a great building. It's got location, it's got quality built, efficiently designed, it's got a good tenant profile, but it's poorly managed. Get rid of the manager and get a good company to run the building. Turn around, that's a building. It's a long, long story on that building there. I really won't get into it. Infinite return I'll talk about later. But a good solid B building is what you want to buy in an A location. That's the formula, B building in A location. There's never been a better time to finance real estate than now. They're bumping up the rates. Around, instead of being 3.75, they're going to 4.25, 4.5, 4.75, 20 years, 5-year fixed. Sometimes you get a 10-year fixed. In the book, I give you the ideal financing to get in today's world. My book just came out 90 days ago, so it's very current. It's a second edition of a book I wrote 2008. So it's right up to date. I usually like to go to at least 2 banks, maybe 3. And if you do a lot of business with a bank, you're going to bend over backwards to give you the best deal. If they don't give you a good deal, you go to another bank. It's very competitive today. They're very hungry. The banks are very hungry. Banking is a very profitable business. They use your money and the money from the Federal Home Loan Bank Board. They don't put any money out of their own. It's all your money. And you know what they're paying on money market in Bath? 1/8 of 1%. I mean, we're getting 1% in the area we live in, Florida. Why should a bank not pay 1% when they're loaning it out at 4 or 4.5? Your money. It's a great business to be in, to be a banker. I wouldn't want to be in it, but they're making a fortune of money. It's your money and my money that's in the bank that they use to make mortgages, as well as what they borrow from the Federal Home Loan Bank Board, which they pay 2.5%. They're paying you less than 1%. I couldn't believe it when I went into the bank and the senior VP told me, I had just asked her, I was going to open up an account. My wife and I going to open up an account. We pay, it came out to 1/8 of 1%. Point, whatever the fraction is. I said, how about a CD? Oh, with a CD, 3 years you can get 0.75, something like that. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. If you have your money in a bank here, put it in another bank, a very, very solid bank, if you want to just, keep cash available for a good deal, when a good deal comes up. Why would anybody want to keep money in the bank when safely they can get 4 or 5% rate of return on a good piece of property? Why would anybody want to do it? I don't know. The whole key is to find the right property. That's the key. In today's market, I think sellers who don't want to pay the capital gains tax right away and want to spread it over the life of a mortgage, a lot of them be happy to hold a mortgage at 4% interest, 4.5% interest. Why not? If they're selling it because they're tired of running the building, and they want to travel the world, and they got kids in California, why not ask them, how about holding the mortgage? Do you need all cash? No, we don't need all cash. So I give them 25% down, have them hold a 75% mortgage. There's no closing costs, there's no points. It's an easy deal. They're beginning to do it. Sellers are beginning to do that who want the income. If they get an income of $150,000 a year on a mortgage, or $100,000, or $75,000, if they can get an income, that's what they want. They want to retire. They've run the building for 25 years, husband and wife. They want to travel and so forth. So in your dealings, in your negotiations, first thing you should ask, assuming you find the right property, I would say to the seller, what are you going to do with the money when we close this deal? Oh, I need the cash. I've got to have all cash. I'm going to take the cash, and then we're going and do this, that, the other, you know, whatever it is. Then if they say, well, I really don't know. I really don't need the money. Well, why are you selling? Well, my wife and I are tired of it. We've been here 25 years. We've worked hard. And the apartments, you know, are great. They've given us a wonderful income and everything else. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I think we'll hold a mortgage for 10 years. Get $100,000 a year income, or whatever the income is. So they become the bank. Now, the fancy term again, capitalization rates, rate of return. Let me say this. Appraisers use that term, and we use it in commercial real estate. But the income less the operating expenses equals the net operating income. So if it has $100,000 income and the expenses are $35,000, there's $65,000 net operating income. They then set a cap rate, say it's 6.5, 0.065. They take the net operating income of $65,000 and they divide it by 0.065, the cap rate, and they come up with a value. Well, why don't they do it on the cash flow? Because you have to have some standard. There could be 20 properties, and each one could have a different cash flow, even though they were similar properties. So they don't know what kind of a mortgage you get, but they base it as if you were going to pay all cash. The cap rates are amazing, what I've heard from a very qualified broker sitting right here, Kevin Fletcher of Malone Real Estate, who I respect a lot. And he told me the cap rates in the area, I'm amazed, 6.5, 7.5, 8.5. Well, that cap rate, and they have the big six, they have all these features that I'm talking about. Went up the ladder, every one of them. The right price, a lot of investors lose a deal because they just want to steal the property. And when you do that, it really doesn't work. This business is a business of win-win-win. Win for the seller, win for the buyer, and win for the broker. And you can go down the list. Win for the title company, win for the real estate attorney, win for the surveyor, win for the engineer. Everybody comes out a winner. There's no losers here. Sure, if I see it's a fair price, I'm still going to make an offer, generally. Even though I know it'll probably be refused. It's just my nature. I don't want to pay retail for anything. When I first came from New Jersey to Miami, I was all alone. I had $300 in my pocket, and everybody said to me, young man, and I had a real estate salesman's life, young man, you got here too late. All the good deals have been snapped up. stuff for 500 an acre is now 2,500, and the houses and apartments that are going for 3,000 a unit are now going for 6,000 a unit. You should go home. There's no money to be made here. Well, I didn't go home. And 20 years later, they're all saying, the reason you did so good is you got here just at the right time. The right time is now. Believe me, the right time is now. As a young salesman, I would go out with potential purchasers, and they'd say, you see that lot over there? I could have bought that for $1,500. It's going for $5,000. You see, and they'd be telling me, I coulda, I shoulda, coulda, shoulda, coulda, shoulda. I listened to this. I said, I don't want to hang out with these people. Don't hang out with negative thinkers. You know the people who say coulda, shoulda? They say it for their entire lifetime. So I hung out with doers and didders. What a difference. I learned so much. I was mesmerized by people who were buying land and buying apartments and investing. And then they would tell me, you know, and I was just blown away. And I've hung out with people like that for my entire career. So stay away from negative thinkers. Now, the price, when you're buying a big six property and the rents are under market, there's upside. And you're figuring what you're going to pay. The seller will say to you, you know, my rents are under the market. And you're arriving at a cap rate and a price based on the existing rents. But when you buy it, you can increase the rents. So I'm not going to sell it to you on the existing rents. Well, you know something? Seller's right. What you do is you compromise. And you pay them more for the building than what the existing net operating income justifies, because you know you're going to get 30% more, so you're paying 15%, say 15%, 30% the rents are on the market, and you compromise with the seller, and you pay him a price based on the projected rent when the rents increase 15%. He's willing to do that, but you know you can increase them 30% over 3 years, and then each year probably 5%. So you reach and you make the deal. If you've got a property that has all these characteristics to it, all 6 of these characteristics, you're going to lose it because you're not willing to go up? I go up all the time, all the time. It makes sense. You still have upside. There's 30% under the market, so you still got 15%. And usually rents will go up at least 3% per year. I want to tell a little story about the Louisiana Purchase. It's one of my favorite stories. It's in the book too. When Thomas Jefferson was president in 1803, he brokered one of the greatest real estate deals of all time. I don't think the kids in school know this. The kids in school should be teaching financial literacy, stocks, real estate, mortgages. The kids don't even know what the credit and the debit means. They're completely ignorant of the financial world. And they should teach that. I'm going to go to the superintendent of schools when I get back in Miami and ask him to put that in the curriculum in grammar schools, start in grammar schools and high schools. So Napoleon Bonaparte came to Jefferson because France owned most of the property outside of the 13 colonies, and said, we need money. And guess what? We'll sell you 530 million acres that we own. And Jefferson said, how much? It said, 21 million, 4 cents an acre. Well, that was higher than the market. And they went back and forth for a year negotiating. And Napoleon, France needed the money to fight the British. That's why they wanted to sell. So he set the price at 22 million. Jefferson made an offer of 11 million. So 4 cents is what Napoleon wanted, and 2 cents is what Jefferson wanted to pay. The Congress finally agreed at 15 million, split the difference, 3 cents an acre. France wanted 4 cents, Jefferson offered 2 cents. The deal was finally made at 3 cents an acre, which is, did I say 15 million? Yeah. But the Congress balked like crazy. They said, it's not worth it. It's not, and Jefferson had to convince them that this was a good deal. And you know what? That more than doubled the size of the United States as we know it. And the Homesteading Act came, 640 acres, a section of land, one section. You could buy it for maybe a penny an acre. What is a penny? What's a penny an acre? 640 pennies. For, what's that, $6.40, whatever it comes to. People were buying like crazy. And that's when the Institute of Real Estate, of land ownership, started in this country, was the Louisiana Purchase. It's a fascinating story. I'm thinking Jefferson was entitled to a brokerage fee on the deal. Maybe he didn't have his license. And foreign investors is not a big deal in this area, but in South Florida, coming in like crazy. And one thing about price, I used to have the habit of knowing what people paid for property. So buying, let's say, a 10-unit apartment building, let's say somebody paid $500,000. Now they want $1 million. And I'd say to one of the salesmen in my office who'd like to sell me stuff, hey, you just paid $500,000. How can it be worth $1 million? I had that habit. I knew what the prices were. And I couldn't, it was tough for me to pay $1 million when the guy bought the property 2 or 3 years ago, $500,000. But he said, you know, it doesn't matter if he won it in a crap game or they got it free. It's what it's worth today. And you better develop amnesia about prices. So I did. I don't care what somebody paid for property. I do not care. It has no bearing whatsoever on what it's worth. There was one time when real estate values really went down, and that was in 1929, the crash of 1929. Owners of real estate were jumping off buildings in Chicago. My ex-mother-in-law had 500 salespeople at Northside Realty in Chicago. She just graduated grammar school and worked in a department store, a millinery, great salesman. She started a company, she had 500 salespeople. And she left there and came to Miami. She had about 100 properties and just left them with an attorney. If they go up in value someday, we'll split the profits. She told me they were actually jumping off of roofs because they lost everything. It's a pretty, you know, I'm not sure that it's true, but I heard it from others too. That was really a crash. Really, really a crash. Huge unemployment, everything in the country. And then all these programs brought the country back with Roosevelt and Truman and so forth. I mean, you know, they had to do something, and they did come up with ways to solve. But the recession of 2008, 2007, my properties went up in value in the recession. Why? Because I could sell them at a 5 cap. You wouldn't get 6% interest or 5% interest or 4% interest. Now you're getting that rates were going down, down, down. So if the rates are going down, 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 I can sell a property now, instead of at a 7 cap, I can sell it at a 5 cap. That makes it worth more. And I'll tell you, Marcus and Millichap, I've been on the radio on this, they thought I was crazy. And the biggest brokers in the country were at that station where I was talking, and they said, you're absolutely correct. All the top properties, all the good properties went up in value in 2008 because of lower cap rate. Well, there's a thing called a 1031 exchange. I've never done one, and I don't like them particularly for certain reasons. That, first of all, if this property goes up to $1.5 million and you buy a property for more than $1.5 million, you escape the capital gains taxes, deferred until you sell a second property. That's not bad if you can find the right deal. But they have all kinds of stuff. You have to identify it, and then there's 90 days. There's all kinds of complications with it. But it makes sense if you happen to have another deal, but it has to be more than the value of what you have. So if it's worth $1.5 million, you've got to pay more than $1.6 million or $1.501 or whatever. Now, here's another thing. Really, this is the best. This is the best thing in the world. Here's this property. Let's say you've owned it for 5 years. The mortgage is now down to $520, whatever it is. The value is up to $1.5 million. Hey, if it's up to $1.5 million and I can get an 80% loan, and the mortgage is now $540,000, hey, I'm going to go down and see the banker and increase the mortgage. Go and see the banker, and the banker says, oh, it's $1.5 million. Yeah, if it pays $1.5 million, we'll increase the mortgage to, what's 80% of $1.5 million? $1.2 million? Yeah, $1.2 million. Well, you only owe $540. You're putting a lot of money in your pocket, but you still have enough cash flow to give you a return. Your return is still going to be great because you get a lot more NOI at that point. What is the return if you have no money in a deal and it's not taxable? When you increase the loan from, let's say, $500,000 to $1.2 million, that's $700,000. You're putting it right in your pocket. It's not taxable because you haven't sold the property. It's called, when you're going in for mortgage, it's in my book, not open end, but it's part of the mortgage that you can increase the mortgage as the value goes up. There's a term for it.
Future advance cost.
What is it?
Future advance.
Yeah, future advance, right. So I would want that situation. Now, you buy another property, you keep this one, you got $700,000 in your pocket. Say it's $500,000, $300,000, whatever the numbers are. I do this all the time. I have no money in most of the properties I bought over my career. Through this method, any big six property you can do this with. Well, why don't people do it? Why are they afraid of a mortgage? A mortgage is healthy as long as the tenants are making the payments. Who makes your payments on the mortgage? The tenants. So why are people shy of going in? And then they go to a great broker like Paul Clark or Kevin Fletcher. Hey man, I got $500,000 cash and I want to buy an income property. What do you got? You could use your IRA to invest in real estate. You have to put it in a separate account. If you're in stock has a brokerage firm, and so that is the brokerage firm. But you're allowed to take the IRA and buy real estate with it, but you have to have a separate entity handling it, which is a nominal sum of money. And they're all over the place. But a lot of people say, gee, I didn't know I could use my IRA to buy income property. I didn't know you could see. You think I'm so great. And I made millions and millions of dollars. I had it in 1992, January 4th of 1992, I declared bankruptcy. And my net worth went from 22 million to zero. Fortunately, the judge approved a plan for 5 years for me to get out of it. I was allowed $85,000 a year, and I had to have DIP after all my checking account, debtor in possession. Nobody knew what DIP meant. They thought it was maybe some kind of a thing like CCIM. You know, so I wasn't too embarrassed. But when I declared bankruptcy, I went home and felt humiliated. I felt that I was stupid, that I mortgaged stuff that I shouldn't have, that I bought a country club, and because Jeb Bush and the Tisch brothers were my partners, it went to my head, ego. I should have never bought that country club. And they're ready to foreclose on it. And I had to declare bankruptcy. So my net worth went down to zero. And I went home, I could not sleep. I looked up at the ceiling. I took all the sleeping pills you could imagine, and I still couldn't sleep. I was a wreck, a complete wreck. But you know something? I just had to start again and make something out of my life. So I put my broker's hat on and had a guy from New York looking for a building he could do telecommunications in. I had a great building, sold it to him for $8 million. It was a 6% commission. Steve Smith had the listing, $480,000 commission. I got $240, he got $240. Then we did a sale leaseback, was $30,000 more, so I wound up with $255,000. And with that, I bought a fabulous office building, and then a string of them after that. So today, my net worth is back up where it was before. But it's an amazing thing. I don't have any debt. But I'm going to have some debt if I find a big six property. I'm going to mortgage what I have and come up with the cash.